There is no limits to what you can accomplish except the limits you place on your own thinking. With this beautiful thought, a very good morning to all my dear students. I hope that you all are in good health. I, Shreya Jadhav, welcome you all to my e-learning channel. And today we are going to learn English Grade 10, Chapter 6, 5 and 6 both, that is the 100 Dresses Part 1 and the 100 Dresses Part 2. Both the chapters are, we can say, a continuity of the story, and this story is written by L. Basor Esther. So over here, today we'll be doing chapter number 5, that is the 100 Dresses Part 1. The story, as I have told you, is in a continuity format. So it is that both of the stories have the same characters and the same plot. So before going through the explanation of the chapter of part 1, let us know something about the author. Eleanor Estes, born on May 9, 1906, died July 15, 1988, was an American children's author and children's librarian. Her book Ginger Pie, which she also created illustrations for, won a Newbery Medal. 3 of her books were Newbery Honor winner. Her books are based in her life in a small town in nearly 1900s. So we can say her personal experiences she has majorly shared in her work. Introduction for answers. Dear students, whenever you are appearing for test or examination purpose, always remember to start your answer with introduction. This creates a good impact. Prose. Prose name, The 100 Dresses. Author's name, L. Basor Esther. Genre, short story. Summary. Here is a story of a girl named Wenda Petronsky, a poor Polish girl who migrated in America, and she was frequently bullied by her classmates. So, now let us go through the reading and explanation of the chapter. Let's get started. So let us begin. Before starting the reading of the chapter, let us know something about the Polish American community which settled down in United States. The first Polish immigrants arrived in America in 1608, but the largest wave of Polish immigration occurred in the early 20th century when more than 1 million Poles migrated to the United States. The Polish state did not exist at that time, and the immigrations were identified according to their country of origin rather than to ethnicity. They were identified as Russian Poles, German Poles, and Austrian Poles. One of the most notable Polish American communities is in Chicago and its suburbs. So, Chicago is sometimes called the second largest Polish city in the world, next to Warsaw, the capital of Poland. Polish Americans were sometimes discriminated against in the United States, as were the Irish, Italians, and Jewish. According to the United States 2000 census, 667,414 Americans of the age 5 are older reported Polish as the language spoken at home. which is about 1.4% of the people who speak languages other than English, or 0.25% of the US population. So this was a short detail of Polish American community which is in United States. So now let us go through the chapter. Today, Monday, Wanda Petronsky was not in her seat, but nobody, not even Peggy and Madeline, the girls who started all the fun, noticed her absence. Usually, Wanda sat in the seat next to the last seat in the last row in the room 13. She sat in the corner of the room where the rough boys who did not make good marks sat. The corner of the room where there was most scuffling of feet, most roars of laughter when anything funny was said, and most mud and dirt on the floor. Wanda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. On the contrary, she was very quiet and rarely said anything at all. And nobody had ever heard her laugh out loud. Sometimes she twisted her mouth in a crooked sort of smile, but that was all. So, over here, the introduction has been given that a girl called Wanda Petronsky, who is the main character, was not present in class 13. She was not sitting at the end of the classroom. That was usually where she used to sit. And even nobody cared that she wasn't present. Not even Peggy and Madeline. They were least interested about it. Now, usually it is mindset that people who sit, or we can say the backbenchers, are not good at studies. They are really very rough. They do not make good marks, and where most of nuisance work are being done, like scruffing of the feet, dragging your feet on the bench, or we can say on the tiles to make noise. All these situations would happen where it would happen at the end of the bench. But Wanda, who used to sit at the back of the classroom, was not at all rough and noisy. She was really very quiet and rarely she would say anything. And nobody had even heard her laughing out loud. Sometimes only she would smile. Nobody knew exactly why Wanda sat in that seat, unless it was because she came all the way from the Bogin's height and her feet were usually caked with dry mud. But no one really thought much about Wanda Petronsky once she sat in the corner of the room. The time when they thought about Wanda was outside of the school hours. At noon time when they were coming back to school, or in the morning early before school began, when groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way to the schoolyards. Then sometimes they waited for Wanda to have fun with her. So usually whenever Wanda used to come, no one used to notice until and unless she was sitting behind. She came all the way from Bogin's height, and usually she used to carry plenty of dry mud, and might be that the reason that she was sitting at the end of the classroom. People over there usually were more interested not talking to her inside the classroom, but they were more interested to harass her outside. And during the noon time and early in the morning, before the school begins, 2 or 3 people would make fun of her in the schoolyard, and they would wait for the Venda especially to come so that they could have some fun with her. The next day, Tuesday, Venda was not in the school. either, and nobody noticed her absence again. On the Wednesday, Peggy and Maddie, who sat down front with other children who got good marks and who didn't trek in a whole lot of mud, did notice that Wanda wasn't there. Peggy was the most popular girl in the school. She was pretty, she had many pretty clothes, and her hair was curly. Maddie was her closest friend. The reason Peggy and Maddie noticed Wanda's absence was because Wanda had made them late to school. They had waited and waited for Wanda to have some fun with her, and she just hadn't come. They often waited for Wanda Petronsky to have fun with her. So over here, there is the entry of two other characters whose name is Peggy and Maddie. Peggy is one of the most popular girl in the school, and Maddie was her best friend. Peggy and Maddie noticed that Wanda was not present. They were not interested in becoming friends with her, but they were more interested in making fun of her. That why she wasn't there, because both of them were waiting for Wanda to come, but somehow they became late, but Wanda didn't appear. Wanda Petronsky. Most of the children in the room 13 didn't have names like that. They had names easy to say, like Thomas, Smith, or Alan. There was one boy named Bounce, Willie Bounce, and people thought that was funny, but not funny in the same way that Petronsky was. Wanda didn't have any friends. She came to school alone and went home alone. She always wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right. It was clean, but it looked as though it had never been ironed properly. She didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the worn, hard ground. So, over here, what happened? Wanda Petronsky usually was one of the girl in that room number 13 who was kept all alone. Because of her name, she was classified different. She didn't had any sort of friends. Moreover to that, she used to come school alone and she would go home also alone. She usually wore a faded blue dress which looked as if that it was clean enough, but it was not ironed properly. She didn't had any sort of friends, but plenty of girls used to talk to her, and sometimes they would surround her in the schoolyards as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch. But none of them invited Wanda Petronsky to play with her. Wanda, Peggy would say in the most courteous manner as though she was talking to Miss Mason. Wanda, she would say, giving one of her friends a nudge, means a gentle push. Tell us, how many dresses did you say you had hanging up in your closet? So over here you can see in the picture that how Wanda is now having books in her hand, and the three girls, one of them might be Peggy or Maddie. Yes, so how they are making fun of Wanda by telling her that just tell us how many dresses are you having in your closet. 100, Wanda would say. 100, exclaimed all the little girls incredulously, means showing an unwillingness to believe that it is next to impossible that anyone would be having 100 dresses. And the little ones would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Yeah, 100, all lined up, said Wanda. Then her thin lips grew together in silence. What are they like? All silk, I bet, said Peggy. Yeah, all silk, all colors. Velvet too? Yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses, Wanda would repeat stolidly, all lined up in my closet. Then they would let her go. And then, before she would gone really very far, they wouldn't help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. So, what Wanda used to say that she was having 100 dresses. So all the girls who were playing hopscotch over there, they would stop, and all of the little girls would listen to Petronsky, and she would say that yes, I have 100 dresses and all are lined up. She had many dresses, and all the dresses were made up of silk and they were of different colors. She had a velvet dress too. And when she would say this thing, Peggy would let her go. But not very far where she had reached, they would start laughing very hardly. 100 dresses. Obviously, the only dress Wanda had was the blue one she wore every day. So why did she say she had 100? What a story! How many shoes did you say you had? 60 pairs, all lined up in my closet. Cries of exaggerated politeness greeted this. All alike? Oh no, every pair is different. All colors, all lined up. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friend, were always the last to leave. Finally, Wanda would move up to the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed. Hitching her left shoulder every now and then in a funny way she had, finishing the walk to school alone. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies, and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. If anybody had said to her, "Don't you think that is cruel way to treat Wanda?" she would have been very surprised. Cruel? Why did the girl say she had 100 dresses? Anybody could lie that was a lie. Why did she want to lie? And why she wasn't just an ordinary person? Else, why she have the name like that? Anyways, they never made her cry. So over here, it was finally that Peggy and Wanda, both of them used to make her tease a little bit. But Peggy was a really good girl. She was not that cruel also. She would help other children and students if they were bullied, and she would cry for hours if any animals were mistreated. Moreover to that, whenever any person would say that why are you harassing Wanda, she would say that why she is lying. She could behave as if a normal other girls only. Why she is supposed to tell lies? And because of this thing, it is next to impossible that the person may have so many no dresses, and why she has that name. But they used to tease her, but Peggy never made her cry. As for Maddie, this business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses and how many hats and how many this and that she had was bothering her. Maddie was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes. Thank goodness she didn't live up on Boggins Heights or have a funny name. So what happened? Maddie was a really good girl. Yes, she was not interested in teasing Petronsky or Wanda. Why? Because she herself was a poor girl, and she usually wore the clothes which were given by the other people. So she was not thanking that she was not living on the Boggins height, and she was not having funny names. Otherwise, Peggy would also made fun of her. Sometimes when Peggy was asking Wanda these questions in that mocking polite voice, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied the marbles in the palm on her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing herself. Not that she felt sorry for Wanda exactly. She would never have paid any attention to Wanda if Peggy hadn't invented the dresses game. But suppose Peggy and all the others started in her next. She wasn't as poor as Wanda. Perhaps, but she was poor. Of course, she would have more sense than to say she had 100 dresses. Still, she would not like for them to begin on her. She wished Peggy would stop teasing Wanda Petronsky. So, what would happen whenever Peggy used to ask and make fun of Wanda? Maddie would also feel really very embarrassed, and she would think that this game of counting dresses, how many the girls are having, all this was started by whom? It was started by Peggy. And Maddie was also not that rich enough. She was also a poor girl only. So she always used to think that if this same thing would happen with her, then she would feel really very embarrassed. And she knew that how Wanda Petronsky would also feel. Today, even though they had been late to school, Maddie was glad she had not had to make fun of Wanda. She worked her arithmetic problems absent-mindedly. 8 times 8, let's see. She wished she had the nerve to write Peggy a note, because she knew she never would have the courage to speak right out to Peggy, to say, "Hey Peggy, let's stop asking Wanda how many dresses she has." When she finished her arithmetic, she did start a note to Peggy. Suddenly, she paused and shuddered. She pictured herself in the schoolyard, a new target for Peggy and the girls. Peggy might ask her where she got the dress that she had on, and Maddie would have to say it was one of Peggy's old ones that Maddie's mother had tried to disguise with new trimming, and so no one in the room 13 would recognize it. So now one fine day, what happened? Maddie was coming to school and they were doing their work at that time. She thought that she would be writing down one letter to Peggy, requesting her not to make fun of Wanda. But while she started writing down the note, she realized that if, for example, Peggy would ask with other girls, she would ask that from where she was buying all these dresses. Then usually Maddie used to wear the old dresses of Peggy, because her mother would make some trimming and a new dress would be made. And then if all of them would come to know, then she would be the next target. If only Peggy would decide of her own accord to stop having fun with Wanda. Oh well, Maddie ran her hand through her short blonde hair, as though to push the uncomfortable thoughts away. What difference did it make? Slowly, Maddie tore into bits the note she had started. She was Peggy's best friend, and Peggy was the best liked girl in the whole room. Peggy could not possibly do anything that was really wrong, she thought. As for Wanda, she was just some girl who lived up on Bogan's Heights and stood alone in the schoolyard. She scarcely even said anything to anybody. The only time she talked was in the schoolyard about her 100 dresses. Maddie remembered her telling about one of her dresses, pale blue with colored trimming, and she remembered another that was brilliant jungle green and red says. You would look like a Christmas tree in that, girls had said in pretended admiration. So over here, Maddie tore the dress, and because of this thing, eventually what happened? Tore that letter which she was writing because she thought that if Peggy would come to know, then she would be the next target. And though she was one of the most appreciated girl in the class 13 or room 13 eventually to be said, she was happy to be her best friend, and whatever the friends does she always used to support her. And Wanda was just a simple some girl who lived in Bogin's Height, and she was no all alone in the school. She would only talk about her 100 dresses. And one fine day she told about her blue dress, she told about her jungle green dress and red says, and all the girls pretended that she would look, she admired her with those dresses. Thinking about Wenda and her 100 dresses all lined up in the closet, Maddie began to wonder who was going to win the drawing and coloring contest. For girls, this contest consisted of designing dresses, and for boys for designing motorboats. Probably Peggy would win the girls' medal. Peggy drew better than anyone else in the room. At least that's what everybody thought. She would copy a picture in a magazine or some film star's head so that she would almost tell who it was. Oh, Maddie was sure Peggy would win. Well, tomorrow the teacher was going to announce the winner. Then they would know. The next day, in the drizzling, Maddie and Peggy hurried to school under Peggy's umbrella. Naturally, on the day like this, they didn't wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of the Oliver Street, the street that far, far away, under the railroad tracks and up the hill, led to Bogin's Heights. Anyways, they weren't taking chances on being late today because today was important. Do you think Miss Mason will announce the winners today? Asked Peggy. Oh, I hope so. The minute we get in, said Maddie. Of course you'll win, Peg. Hope so, said Peggy eagerly. The minute they entered the classroom, they stopped short and gasped. There were drawings all over the room, on every ledge of the window sill, dazzling colors and brilliant, lavish designs, all drawn on great sheets of wrapping paper. There must have been 100 of them, all lined up. These must be the drawings for the contest. They were. Everybody stopped and whistled or murmured admiringly. So now what happened? There was a drawing competition arranged for the girls and boys. Girls were supposed to draw the dresses and design them, and boys were supposed to craft or draw out the motorboats. The next day, Miss Mason, who was their teacher, she was supposed to announce the winner's name. And at that day, as it was raining, Maddie and Peggy didn't wait for Wanda Petronsky over there. When they entered in the classroom, what they saw? Everywhere in the whole classroom, there were plenty of drawings on the window sills and with brilliant colors and dazzling colors, beautiful designs, and they all were drawn on great sheets of wrapping paper. They were almost 100 and they were all lined up. Everybody was admiring those dresses a lot. As soon as the class had assembled, Miss Mason announced the winners. Jack Bagels had won for the boys, she said, and his designs for an outboard motor was on exhibition in room 12, along with the sketches by all the other boys. As for the girls, she said, although just one or two sketches were submitted by most, one girl in room 13 should be proud of her. This one girl actually drew 100 designs, all different, all beautiful. In the opinion of the judges, any one of the drawings is worthy of winning the prize. I am very happy to say that Wanda Petronsky is the winner of the girls' medal. You can see over here that Wanda is drawing different sketches. So over here, Miss Mason announced many winners, and over here the best winner or who won the contest among the boys was Jack Pagels, and his exhibition was put up in room number 12, and other boys' sketches were also there. And for girls, usually everyone drew one or two drawings and they have submitted, but here it can be said like this, that there were 100 drawings submitted. And Miss Mason was really very happy to say that Wanda Petronsky was the winner of the girls' medal. You can see over here different beautiful dresses drawn by Petronsky. Unfortunately, Wanda has been absent from school for some days and is not here to receive the applause that is due to her. Let us hope she will be back tomorrow. Now, class, you may file around the room quietly and look at her exquisite drawings. The children burst into applause, and even the boys were glad to have a chance to stamp on the floor, put their fingers in their mouth and whistle, though they were not interested in dresses. "Look, Peg," whispered Maddie. "There's that blue one she told us about. Isn't it beautiful?" "Yes," said Peggy, "and here's that green one. Boy, and I thought I could draw." So now Miss Mason told that today Wanda is not present in the school. She is hoping that she would be back tomorrow. And the class was now requested to see all the exquisite drawings presented by the students. And Maddie and Peggy are now admiring that how beautiful it is. She told about one blue dress. It is beautiful. And Peggy told that, see, she was talking about this one green one also. And Peggy told to Maddie and to herself that no, she was a great artist, but eventually no. Great artist was Wanda Petronsky. So this is all about today's video lecture. I hope you have understood the part 1 of the chapter. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.